So. I'm playing the first Descendant. I'd say I have coming up on 600 hours into this game. So I'd say I'm a pretty, uh, pretty good source on it. And I can gauge how decent and how good the game is. Alright. I have all the, and I'm a shill. I'm not shill. I'm a brag. I have every Descendant, with the exception of the new one, but I'm close to getting the new one. I have every ultimate weapon except, well, the newer one, the hand cannon, because I can't find anyone who actually knows how to beat the in-game boss. Now I heard that they nerfed him just a little bit, and now he's actually doable, but haven't really been on the Colossi grind. But yeah, I'd say I'm a pretty good source. I can gauge the issues and the strengths and weaknesses of the game, because there's many weaknesses the game has. Hey, Lucy, why are you whimpering? She does this every single time I have food, right? Every single fucking time I have food. And it just happened to be when I'm recording. So yeah, let's give this a watch.
The first Descendant is the most...
I can't hear a fucking thing for some reason. Why is that? That's fucking embarrassing. I'm supposed to be professional, and I'm failing. Fuck professionality. Going bad.
The first Descendant is the most conflicted and confused about a game I've ever been.
Yeah.
I try to make sure that when I play a game for the first time, I'm doing it blind. No wikis, no guides, no videos, no nothing, because I want to give you guys the most unfiltered opinion I possibly can give. And
it's a knockoff of Warframe. It's Warframe, but for chumps. That's not a bad thing. Warframe works. Warframe's good. It's just there's so much clunk in the game that Warframe fixed forever ago. But this game hasn't. I guess it's part of the game. Part of the game itself, with like character collision and collision with the enemies. Also with, get it stun locked out of your abilities and they're just gone. But yeah, I'd say it's effectively just a poor man's Warframe.
I want to have an unadulterated experience, so to say. And in the past, we've talked about how with as many games that have been coming out, as many live service games, because everybody wants to get into that market today, that oftentimes a lot of these games are not delivering an experience that's worth the investment, either by way of bad game design or bad monetization. But in the case of the first Descendant, there are so many things about this game that I absolutely love. There have been times where it was hard for me to put this game down. But in equal parts in the opposite direction, I have some very heavy criticisms for this game.
Yeah.
So what I want to do today is I want to talk about my experience playing the first Descendant for the very first time. I want to talk about what it looked like, what it felt like, and most importantly, what it cost.
Oh my god, I don't care.
I'm what you would call a looter-shooter aficionado, a connoisseur of sorts. Destiny 1, Borderlands 1, 2, and 3, Tiny Tina's in the pre-sequel, Outrider.
Yeah, it scratches that itch. It's kill bosses so you can get better guns, so you can kill bosses faster, so you can get better guns from those bosses, just so you can kill the bosses even faster. And many games try to tap into the live service, but so many games are garbage. Like, that's why live service has sort of been like a slur in most games, because it's like, okay, so the fundamental aspect of the game is to coax me into making money, or into spending money, not actually give me a game. Oh, I see. And we know this with Kill the Justice League Suicide Squad, right? Above being a bad game, above being a game that wastes your time and insults you, above all the consultancy bullshit, it's just a bad game trying to tap into a niche that it just was not able to and could not, because people just lacked the drive to keep playing the game. It's like, oh, why would I want to keep going back weekly to kill the same fucking boss?
There's the Division 1 and 2. These have always been some of my favorite games to play. I enjoy the game loop of picking up a ton of loot, sifting through it, finding what you like, and immediately going back out to find the next best thing. Slowly but surely watching your power grow and seeing that growth reflected in how easily you smash through obstacles that used to cause you pause in the past. Just recently, I got back into the looter shooter action RPG genre with Warframe. I have a complete series on that experience here on YouTube, me playing the game for the very first time. I highly recommend that you watch it because some of that experience will be reflected here, as these games share a lot of similarities. So, what is the First Descendant? Well, it's a free-to-play, third-person, cooperative action RPG developed by Nexon Games. Set in a futuristic sci-fi world, players take the role of Descendants, who are humanity's last hope at defending against their invaders, known as the Vulgus, and these powerful void-sent beings called the Colossi. The game features a variety of characters with unique abilities, customizable weapons and gear that you can upgrade. You can team up in squads of up to 4 players, tackle different missions, explore the game's world, and take on challenging enemies both in small and large-scale boss battles. I logged into the game and was presented with a cutscene and a character selector. I'll be honest, after the post-apocalyptic intro, humanity on the brink of destruction, it was a bit of a tonal contrast hearing a grizzly commander walk up to tell me that I was going on a dangerous mission with a character named Bunny. I was given the choice between the frost-wielding VS.
It's a very anime game, like it just out the bat, very anime, and it has throwaway sci-fi setting number one. Throwaway sci-fi, humanity on the brink of destruction. You're effectively a one-man fucking army, and you're gonna blast and blow people the hell up with a couple other descendants. I mean, and that's fine. You don't need a groundbreaking, overarching concept. I mean, and the First Descendant adds things that, well, he'll probably go over it, design choices, shall we say, that people absolutely like.
Explosive throwing Lepic and the defensive Ajax. I went with Viessa for 2 very big reasons. AoE damage and debuffing characters is always a fun way to play. A few things stood out to me from the second that I started playing this game. One being how great the game looks and how few performance issues that...
Yeah, I play the game as like a waifu collection simulator. The male characters are whatever, but fuck it, you play for the fucking waifus. Like, let's not play make-believe. People, and this is why people probably bought them. People bought the characters because they look hot, and it's fiction, and that's okay, right? Like the new character, Haley, I think it is, right? There's people that just bought her now have a problem with all the bull crap that they try to do with her and her grind, but people bought her because she's hot. That
I had. And the other being just how great, how fantastic the game feels to play. The movement feels great, weapons feel great, abilities are responsive and useful, and the enemies have just the right amount of health and damage so that the gameplay feels more engaging.
Yeah.
I can't quite say just how much I appreciate that perfect mix of resistance and reward at the very beginning of the game, because it makes it feel like what you're doing has meaning. If the gameplay is too easy, the weapons, the abilities, the upgrades, build crafting, and loot all become meaningless, a major point of criticism that I had when I played Warframe for the first time. From the onset of the First Descendant, I'm already starting to think about my ability combinations, when and where to use them. I'm looking at loot, trying to find upgrades, and I'm already experimenting with mods for those weapons and abilities, which is a cornerstone to this genre's experience. As I continued to play, I quickly grew to appreciate the game's pseudo-open world design, which is almost a carbon copy of Destiny, with a much smaller map. But with that said, there's a major benefit to the smaller map size, and that's that you're more likely to see other players, which I frequently did. If players had already started a mission, I could jump in midway, or vice versa. You could even jump into somebody else's mission just by shooting one of the enemies that they're fighting, rather than actually having to interact with the quest marker. very quickly I found myself falling into the game loop, running from node to node, helping out other players, exploring different sections of the map, and ultimately really enjoying the game's level design. As I continued to play the game, areas became a lot more complex and diverse. There were a ton of different places for you to be able to toss your grapple hook, which honestly I thought was going to be more of a gimmick when I
The grapple hook is the worst part of the game. Because sometimes it's like there's this little reticle, right? You can kind of see it on his screen, this little reticle. If you're falling, like in the game, is so clunky that, you would think if you shoot your grappling hook to save you, you'd hit right where the reticle is. But no, you're hitting where the reticle was 5 milliseconds before that. Sometimes they'll lock on a completely random three-dimensional object behind where you're doing. They tried to do movement and they try to do mobility, but like I said, a grappling hook is a fucking terrible way to do it. Like there's even mods. They even have mods for the grappling hook to fix the grappling hook. Like one just locks it on the midair and you swing like Tarzan. The other increases, the uses but decreases the distance. They do a lot of that. And again, that goes back to the clunkiness of the game. Like, the game is just not meant to be played alone. It's meant to be played with other people. And that because playing with other people fixes the clunkiness, right? Like, yeah, you'll get fucking body blocked by fucking enemies, but if you got your homie in the back laying down on them and killing the enemies, oh hey, you're free, right? It's like, and they tried doing, and the mobility isn't too bad, but when I switch between this game and Warframe, like when I play Warframe, I feel like all the constraints have been released. I can now go full bore. When I'm playing the first Descendant, it's like, oh, the constraints are back. But I'm enjoying. I'm having fun. It's whatever.
first saw it, but genuinely grew to really enjoy this movement mechanic. But I really want to pay my respects because I found it really interesting how progressively more cool each zone got as you slowly pushed further into enemy territory. From overgrown outskirts to sci-fi temples filled with alien architecture. The first Descendant is a game that grows on you very quickly. I genuinely enjoyed the moment-to-moment gameplay, grapple hooking around, flipping behind some enemies, taking them all down. The loot was engaging, the maps were engaging. If I wasn't paying attention, the enemies could very easily take me down.
Oh, yeah.
And in that, I have a lot of respect. It is so important to have good balance in a game like this, because from the onset, I am already paying attention to my character's abilities, I'm paying attention to the loot that I'm picking up, I'm looking at the mods, I'm build crafting and things.
Yeah, and you can min-max, like, right? It's like you can build, like, this is what I did in Warframe. Like, sometimes I build for specific situations. Like, if I need a tank, I'll build Rhino a specific way, or I'll build Lavos a specific way. If I need a nuke, you'll build Saren, Mesa, Ember, even Mirage. You have different frames, you have different characters for different situations. And, that's what adds to the overarching experience, right? Because you're not just playing that one Descendant that's just okay, like Ajax. You're not just playing Ajax just to put up your walls and just sit and shoot. It's like I'm playing Lepic, so I can nuke bosses. I'm playing, Glaze, so I can nuke mobs. I'm playing Viessa, because I don't know if there's a single thing Viessa's actually really bad at. Like, she has nukes, she has mobility, she has crowd control, she has all the things you would need, whereas Lepic and Ajax sort of fill a niche. And again, you can build Lepic to kind of be a nuke. You can build Ajax with his abilities to kind of nuke and to kind of CC. But again, and that also comes to one of the problems with this game is building and min-maxing is very difficult because you need catalysts. Now catalysts are relatively rare. You get them from cracking open the amorphous material. But then you need a material to craft a catalyst, and they're not too difficult to come across, but it requires that level of grind. Then you gotta craft the catalyst, and that takes time. You only craft one at a time. And I think to fully min-max a character, you need like 8 of them, right? Just say, okay, this character is now in game. Oh yeah, you also need an actuator, which you get from cracking amorphous material. They're a rare material you get from them. So and they also you have to crack open the material, pray you get the actuator blueprint, right? And what the actuator does is it increases your mod capacity by 20. What the catalyst does is each mod has a different symbol, and if you slap a catalyst in a Descendant, like whatever mod that matches that symbol is cut by half. And it's very constraining on how much mod capacity you have on your character. And again, mods are where you get in game, right? You get more health, more ability strength from mods, right? You get more crit damage, you get more defense, right? So, and you also have to level up the mods to make them good, which late game costs a lot of Kuiper shards, costs a lot of gold. There's a lot of things you need to put into perspective and keep in mind when playing. And some people just get burnt out. Some people just build up that one character and they're like, okay, I'm fine. But then they find out, oh, well, I'm just playing this one character. I'm not really having fun now. So they dip from the game, right? You got me, like I built up what, 5, 6 characters, right? Oh yeah, you also got ultimate versions of certain characters, right? Not all the characters have ultimate versions. Then that's yet another thing you got. So there are lots of things, right? And just like in Warframe, people play it, get information overload, go schizophrenic, and leave. Some people definitely do this for this game, but I do think people have an easier time getting into the first Descendant than they did Warframe. Because Warframe's been out for a decade, a little over a decade or so. They have a lot of things in it. This game, I mean, if you ever want to get into it, then now is the perfect time. Like, don't wait until they have 1,000 things in it and you get the information overload. But, it just how it is.
Things like that, because I'm noticing as I'm playing that, well, I'm becoming a little less effective and the enemies are becoming far more effective, and I have to find an answer to that.
Yeah, they damage game.
And if the loot doesn't matter and the character builds don't matter because the game is too easy at the start, well, then why are you even playing a game like this? It's the whole point of playing these kind of games is to build that character power and be able to answer the issues and the problems that the enemies pose to you, right? And it's a major criticism that I have for Warframe, a huge one. It almost made me quit the game because it was so easy for far too long at the beginning of the game, where it made it feel like weapons, Warframes, their abilities, none of those things really mattered all that much because you just breeze through just about everything in the game.
Yeah, and that's also why I quit for a little bit, right? Because at one point things just got so fucking easy. Now they fixed that. They have Steel Path, which makes the enemies harder, but what is that? Well, you go through the star chart again, only it's harder. You have arbitrations, but man, you have sorties, but you can only do them once a day. You can only really do arbitrations once every 30 minutes. They have now they have the Archimedes, whatever the hell, and the Netracells, but those are weekly. They have the very thing at the but that's also weekly. you know, and that's but Warframe has decent in-game content. So if you're like me and you're like an absolute fucking boss, like you, they are scared of you, right? You're not scared of the enemy. You're mowing them down by the millions. Like they are afraid of you, right? And you're like, oh well, this isn't really fun. I mean, uh, nuking as Saren is okay, but Saren's also kind of a boring character to me because of that, you know? And that's what for the first Descendant really lacks is decent in-game content. Like, okay, so let's get into the grind with Haley. The grind with Haley is like you do like these 4 missions, right? Which are like the disruptions. They're effectively hard mode, but you can only play alone. And you have to do puzzles, which at first was like, what? Like, you don't play this game just to do some goofy ass puzzles. You play it just to watch a sexy bitch nuke fucking ugly ass enemies, and you can look at their ass and titties while they do it. But they clearly wanted this for Haley, and what you had were 3 groups of people, right? You had people who didn't even care. They seen Haley and they're like, I'm buying, don't fucking care. You had the people that did like the quest because they added new quests. They played some of the missions, seen how fucking annoying they were, and were like, okay, now I'm gonna buy. I'm gonna buy her. But then you had people like me who was like, you know what, I'm gonna just do these quests. I don't fucking care if I get this character. Like, let me get this straight, right? Let me tell you, it's easier to farm literally any other ultimate, any other in-game descendant than it was to farm the new one, which is Haley, who's just a regular descendant. And they made lots of changes to it, but it's like, you know, I don't want them to keep just shoving out content that's going to be bullcrap to begin with, but they'll fix it later. You know, shoving out bullcrap content just to rope in as many people to buy as possible, then change it later. And to their credit, they did change it like a little less than a week after the whole disruption bullshit came out. But it's like, you know, let's not fall into this trap of just releasing goofy crap. Now it's easier. Right now the grind's easier. Yeah, you still need a in-game frame. Right? I use Ajax because I can just be lazy and beat the crap out of people. You know, he's very tanky, and some of the puzzles kind of require tankiness because, yeah, he it's hard to really explain. One of them is you gotta shoot these towers and they have a symbol on them. You have to press the right drone with the right 4 symbols and stay in the shield. If you don't do that, you die and have to redo it. If you do, well, you get the gun and you use the gun to smack open the walls. It's, again, people don't play for that. People play to be an overpowered motherfucker to do millions of damage to, I don't know, a hard colossi. You know, people play to min max. You know, they don't play for puzzles. And I sure hope they don't do that again when they add another fucking Descendant. Because, again, I might even find myself being like, well, I don't really want to play this anymore. Like, I was about to do that with when Haley first came out, but I decided against it. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to wait. Things could change, and, well, to their credit, it did change.
Ultimately, I didn't quit, and I'm glad that I didn't because Warframe's an absolutely fantastic game. But with that said, this is a lesson that a lot of developers can learn from. If your game is too easy at the beginning, then it's too boring. If your game is too hard, then you're going to bounce players right off of your game. You want to find that sweet spot right in the middle that keeps players engaged and keeps players engaging with the mechanics that they're going to be using for the entire game.
and I'm gonna be pausing every 5 minutes. I don't believe that. Again, I think you need that artistic intent, right? Because you have hard games that are difficult. And I'm not talking the games I grew up playing, which I don't know how the fuck I even beat them. Like I tried going back to like Age of Wonders 1 and 2. Tried going back to, Empire Earth, the strategy games I played in the past on our goofy computer. And I'm like, how the fuck did I ever beat this when I was younger? I'm not talking about those types of games. I'm talking games like Souls like Dark Souls, Elden Ring. Like, if the point of the game, if the artistic intent of the game is, okay, yes, this is difficult, but you have all the tools at your disposal, right? And you yourself are capable of doing this, of beating this game. I don't really think difficulty is really that bad, right? And again, you have games like Black Myth Wukong, which people will obviously say is objectively easier than any Souls like. But again, like I said in my review, it scratches a particular itch that games don't really scratch anymore. That fantasy skill based combo based shooter. And again, millions of people played that game. So again, what is the intent of the game, right? What is the artistic vision of the game, right? And if that vision is clear, I don't really think difficulty is that big of a deal. Like, an easy game is like, fuck, I guess Nikkei Goddess of Victory, right? It gets easy, but it does skill gate you. But if you have the materials and have the better gear and stuff, like at the end of the day, the game's more of a visual novel. You know, the combat's there just to watch hot women shoot guns and they ass shake. And in that case, I don't fucking care. And yeah, it has PvP aspects I don't give a shit about. It has hard mode aspects that, I'll do. But again, this is really what I think is more important than difficulty per se. I personally is fine with difficulty. In fact, I play most games on hard mode because personally I want difficulty. Like I want a challenge. It is why I play a game. But it doesn't have to be the point per se. It's just if it's there, I'm a hurt myself.
It's the reason why they play it in the first place. But the first Descendant does a lot of other things really well. And one of those things is its new player experience. Damn. They did a really good job. Games like the first Descendant live and die by their systems, so it's essential to make sure that the players understand how they work, because they're going to be the main way that they're going to continue to progress through that game, and ultimately what they're playing that game for. Except for the Gooners. Yes, I know why you play this game. Please stop bowing next to my ass in Albion.
Yep.
When you have a game that is entirely dependent on its systems, you have to make sure that you're introducing those systems to players immediately so that they can interact with them from the start, learn them from the start, and apply that knowledge throughout the game. One of First Descendant's first missions is actually to create another Descendant. The game gives you a brief tutorial by way of an NPC, and the mission progress is tracked. The game shows you the loot pools hovering over the different nodes. You go to each node, complete the missions for a chance at the reward. Soon after completing the quest for Bunny, you're given another quest to go build an ultimate weapon, the Thunder Cage. By doing this, you are setting players' expectations. I don't have to buy these things. I don't have to buy these characters or weapons, and I can make them, and this is how I do it. When I see something that I want in the game, whether it's a weapon, character, mod, or piece of equipment, I know how to go look for it now and how to make it. Step by step, the game walks you through the process of how you will ultimately be playing this game in the end game. Targeting loot, farming it, upgrading it, rinse and repeat. They provide solid tutorials on transferring weapon levels so you can continue to use the weapons that you enjoy the most, how to tune weapon substats, how to install mods, how to upgrade them, and
Yeah,
how to
there's a lot of
salvage them.
hand-holding,
Quick
and I think
shout
it's
out to
fine.
whoever's in charge of quality of life. The select all duplicates feature and
Oh my
dismantling
God,
items
it-
is an absolute
Yeah.
godsend.
I didn't even know that was a thing. I was just manually clicking through all the mods, and it's like, oh, there's a select all duplicate button. I'm like, thank you, Jesus. Right? Again, they know how these things go, right? Again, another problem with the game that I don't like is the fact that you have to do inventory management in the middle of it because you grab up a lot of weapons and shit. And I find that annoying, but again, the game makes it accessible, right? With the select duplicate, all duplicate button, right? And things like that, little quality of life things like that, just make the game better, right? Because if you're going to be playing, if you're going to put 500 hours in the fucking game like I did, that's a good feature to really cut down on the amount of time for the grind. And people appreciate that.
By fully explaining these systems through actions rather than words, it didn't take long before I was already trying to make my next Descendant or weapon. Only after a few hours of play, I'm already farming missions to get Freyna, a feat that I didn't understand or achieve in Warframe for over 20 hours because it was never explained in-game, a major weakness that the first Descendant overcame through quest design. The first Descendant doesn't just teach players how to play, it's carefully constructing a foundation upon which their entire experience will be built. By introducing these systems early and thoroughly, the game isn't just educating, it's creating an experience between the player and that game's mechanics.
Yeah, and hand-holding isn't a bad thing, per se, especially if the game as intricate as, like, Warframe, or as games like the first Descendant. Like, people want to be handheld. Like, I want to know, where do I find this? I don't want to have to just take shots in the dark to find a resource that has a 25% drop rate, but you don't know until you're on that actual boss and the resource actually drops for it to drop. Like, in many like games like, Nikkei Gaza Victory, Zaneless Zone Zero, many of these games do the hand holding, and I think that's just fine. In fact, it's better because the point is you want people to be intrigued in the game, right? You want, despite the information overload, you still want the players to engage, and you just do the hand holding a little bit, then you're like, I'm gonna set you free, my little birdie. You do what you do best, right?
Relationship is crucial because it turns what could be a mess of stats, upgrades, and options into a clear path of progression and mastery. When a game successfully embeds its systems into a player's understanding from the outset, it does something profound. It transforms the act of playing from mere participation to purposeful engagement. The player isn't just moving from one mission to the next, they're learning how to shape their experience, how to craft their journey, and how to define their success. And that's where the game hooked me. Because I already have a foundational understanding of these kind of mechanics from playing games like Warframe. I mean, these systems are wholly ripped from Warframe to begin with. That's pretty obvious. But with that said, when a game explains itself this well and executes it as well as the first Descendant does, it makes it so much easier for you to pay less attention to the finer details and more to just enjoying the game and how the game plays, how the characters feel, how the weapons feel, and all those kind of things. It makes the game that much more fun to play.
Yep.
And this is a feeling and experience that I've been looking for a long time. It's something that I really only think I've ever seen well executed by games like The Division or Borderlands, because they understand that loop and that reward system and how to really make it sing, really make the players fall in love with it. And I love this. I genuinely love this. I've been looking for this for a long time, especially in a live service game, and this game delivers on it in a way that I am enthralled. I absolutely love it. But I didn't think that I would like the first Descendant. I never thought I would. Because when I first saw it, it looked like it was nothing more than a complete and utter ripoff of Warframe mixed with...
Well, when I saw it, it had... Because many games do this. Like, you look up the, like the trailers for old World of Warcraft or old, like, Time Shift or Halo. Like, the trailer tries to actually set the tone, right? But when I seen the trailer for, or there's a couple of the teaser trailers for the first Descendant, it was just some woman reading from, like, some HR lady reading from a prompter or reading from a notebook. It wasn't like, oh, so you have Bunny. She's super fast. She electrifies. It's like, oh, when you have Bunny and she is super fast and she electrifies. It's like, that almost took me off the game, because when I see that, I'm like, well, the point is to immerse me with the trailer. It's your best foot forward. Why are you reading it? Like, why is it a first read? Like, why aren't you trying to get me hooked, get me invested in this fantasy ass place? And I played it, and I knew I was going to play it based off the design. I knew I was going to enjoy it. Now, it was after I beat the Elden Ring DLC, Shadow of the Erdtree. Finally, that nightmare was over. And I'm like, okay, I gotta play a fucking new game. And then the first Descendant was free, and a couple of my friends were already playing it. So I was like, sure, why the hell not? I have like 600 hours in the game now. I need help. I have all the Descendants. I have all the weapons, with the exception of like one. And one Descendant. I'm close to getting, by the way. I'm close to getting Haley, goddammit. I'm not that big of a rush. But yeah, I think your trailer and how you present the game is definitely... Like, you look up, like, Warframe trailer, right? Like, it does everything in its power to get you hooked in. It's not just someone reading from a prompter, right? It's not just someone, reading from a PowerPoint display. It makes you feel like you're already in the game.
With some elements of Destiny and The Division. I figured it was nothing more than a blatant cash grab from Nexon, copying off of the success of another company with very little changes, and I was right. That's exactly what this game is.
Yeah, absolutely.
This game suffers from an issue of an identity crisis, where you have developers that are trying to make a good game, but Nexon wants it to be what they always make. The feeling I get from this game, and this is the first time I think we've ever seen something like this so clearly, is that the developers want to make a great game, but management wants it to be like everything else the company produces. While the game in many ways improves upon the works it copies from the very beginning, the minute you start to look past the art design and gameplay, the paint starts to chip. Narratively, I have no idea what's going on. I tuned out within the first few hours because I can only take so much dialogue from completely expressionless characters saying absolutely nothing of value.
Yep.
I don't think I've ever played a game with this much pseudo-intellectualism nonsense. Either the story is completely written by AI, or the writers were just stringing together sci-fi words, hoping and praying that it worked out.
Yeah, it has, that type of dialogue, anime-ass dialogue, where it's like, oh, the MacGuffin is about to do the thing, so we need this thing to stop the MacGuffin to do the thing. Oh, look, this woman, she's the guy, she has the MacGuffin literally right there, and we need to acquire more of those MacGuffins, and this, that, and the other. Like, yeah, it has just a basic throwaway sci-fi-esque idea, and you know what? I think that is fine. Like, there is more effort put into, well, the stories, whatever, but there's more effort put into, like, the cutscenes, the presentations of the characters, the weapons. just the overarching world than I'd say most Western games do, right? Because it's like, okay, if most Western games are like, oh, well, if we don't care about this, we're not gonna care to really do much about it. But our cash shop, it'll be pristine. It'll have all the things that make you wanna buy. It'll have the slot machine type bullshit. It'll have shiny new whatever bull crap just to you know fire up your neurons to pay for it. But the game itself is just a hollow shell with you know minimum uh, artistic value, right? But again, this game has more art. There's more detail in the ass of a character than I'd say in many AAA games, like most, just period, right? So yeah, I mean, yes.
Descendant, we must put the Ironheart into the entropic space and your Arcade's interdimensional neuroplane. Only then will the Colossi connect with the transmomental endoscopic vibrating array, colliding with the DeLorean particles at 88 miles an hour, dumping horse manure on Biff, correcting the timeline and increasing the bus size of all Descendants.
I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do that.
Look, gameplay always comes first. It's the most important thing to players. If the game isn't fun to play, then the game isn't going to get played. And with that said, nothing removes the player's ability to become invested in a game like generic characters and a generic story that makes no sense. Games don't need to have an insane story. They're like action movies. It's all about the action scenes, but at the very least, we want something coherent and entertaining to follow along with. I don't think the story would really even bother me that much if there wasn't so much of it. So many long pieces of drawn out dialogue of people staring at you while saying absolutely nothing of substance. I'm not saying that you need to create Red Dead Redemption or Metal Gear level story writing, but you at least have to try, and it's so blatantly obvious that this is where the budget was cut and no effort was put in.
Yeah, I agree. The budget was definitely cut with that. But personally, I believe they've made up for literally everything else. The look, the characters, the style. And if you actually look into the backstories of some of the characters, they're really not just throwaway. Like, they really tried to give them tragic backstories to fit the tragic situation that humanity's in. And it makes you want to learn at least a little bit more about that character while playing them, right? Like, my waifu is fucking what's her goddamn name? Luna. Like, she's my anime waifu, and I knew she was going to be a Descendant because when the game first came out and you first seen her, but you couldn't play her yet because she was an NPC hell. I was like, they should give a character a dubstep gun, and that is literally what they fucking gave Luna for one of her abilities. Now, it's not as good as like the Saints Row 4 dubstep cannon, but hey, you gotta get what you can take. You know what I'm saying? And I guess what they also need are more characters of different ability types, because there's this other thing where you gotta look for shards to crack open void reactors, and how you get the shards if you strike a void shard area with a Descendant with the same attribute. Then you gotta kill waves of enemies, and when you do that, you get a certain amount of shards. And these are dotted throughout different maps of the game. Some character, like, you don't get, like, some of the shards that require the elements early game are from characters you don't have, right? At least if you're playing alone. And everyone needs to have the same element to actually get the shards from the shard thing. And you need, like, a certain amount of them to crack open the reactors, and the reactors are used to crack open the amorphous material. But oh wait, there's more. You now need to farm the amorphous materials from either outposts or like missions in game, right? So you're doing the farm for the amorphous material. Sometimes they drop, sometimes they don't. You don't know, but wait, there's more. If you do the infiltration of the outpost, you have a higher chance to get them. So you need a specific fucking descendant that can do that and own that. And that one descendant is Sharon. You get her relatively early on in the game, but you have to. Oh, but wait, there's more. You gotta grind for her fucking pieces. She's not an amorphous material. She just has a 25% chance to drop from like, what are they, operations, right? Infiltration operations, yeah. But then you're fighting RNG. You're also fighting with people, and there's also one more thing this game didn't fix is the fact that if you can go in with 4 people, but nobody gets the same rewards. So say if you're looking for a piece from Sharon and you do it with 4 people in your squad, one of y'all can get it, but the other 3 don't get it. I can't tell you how many fucking Blair pieces, how many goddamn Sharon pieces I have, because I was just playing it with my friends. I wasn't in any fucking rush. I already had the character. Hell, I'm playing the character right now just to flex. But it takes them like 11 tries to get the character, where it took me like 6 to get the piece for the character. Right? And I feel like that's something they have to change, because you'll have people that get what they want then fucking dip, right? And it's like, well, this is more of a social game than a game where you just grab what the fuck you want then dip. And that's how you have to treat this game, like a social game, like a social experience. If you don't treat it like that, you're going to get burnt out from the game.
That's not the only place you see it, because the story's not there to be able to distract you at all. You start seeing this one-dimensional design all over the game. The longer you play, the more repetitive quests and mini-boss design gets. What is up with this game's obsession with giving every boss invincibility phases and orbs?
Yeah, and that's also an annoying thing, right? And they did change that, because you have the floating balls that you have to blast to take them out their invincibility bullshit. But some bosses, you have to kill the balls in a specific order they spawn. If you don't do that, they all come back. Some bosses, you have to kill the balls within like 10 seconds of blowing each other up, or they'll just come back. You know? It's like, I'm okay with different, like, ways of making bosses not get nuked in 1 or 2 fucking tries. But, like I said, there has to be different ways. You can't have all the enemies have floating invincibility drones and you have to blast them. Oh yeah, some of them have the drones that go invincible themselves for a little bit. And so you have to sit there like with your thumb up your ass being like, okay, can you not be invincible? It's like, okay, I'm not invincible. Oh hey, I'm shooting. Oh no, I'm invincible again. Gotta wait. So yeah, and I don't care for the bullet spongy enemies, because once you get to a certain level with your guns, they don't even really matter. So
I absolutely love the concept of dungeons having traps and jumping puzzles. Some have different events, each with their own unique layout, so you never feel like you're doing the same thing. And void intercept battles are so damn cool. They have great design, bosses have phases, weak points, resistances, and more. It's some of the best content in the game.
Yeah, the claw fighter,
but it doesn't make any sense that the content that we do the most in the game lacks any of that meaningful gameplay. We're shooting orbs, we're waiting for enemies to spawn, we're waiting for enemies to spawn around the boss to give him an invincibility shield, and then kill that wave of enemies for him to only summon another wave of enemies to kill, so that we can then yet again break his invincibility. there are so many of these moments where I was left so confused, so conflicted, so many times by either the game's design or the clash of the story and character portrayals that I went from saying I'm having fun to why am I even playing this?
Yeah, but you see in this video itself, like, the way you do it is you group them all together and fucking nuke them, right? I don't much care for this because, again, you have so many tools at your disposal to build around this. Like, okay, with this enemy, he summons the assholes that you have to kill. Then you have to get his invincibility down. He does this twice. So what is this person doing? Well, he's throwing Alepic's bullshit, which ropes them in, then grenades their ass. And that streamlines the process. Like, it's one thing if you're just sitting there shooting them. It's another if, again, you have abilities that you build up and can build around to get this done in a little bit more of a streamlined way. Right? I am okay with that. And again, the point is primarily to damage gate, so you don't have, people going through level 1 with no fucking mods and getting moved and just getting carried. Like, you can tell if someone's not actually contributing, especially in hard mode. Right? You can tell if there's that one guy that's not really doing anything.
Games are a medley. The games that both you and I love typically have all elements singing together in harmony. The visuals, the gameplay, the music, all of these things leaving a lasting impression on us, and more importantly, most times distracting us from other weaknesses that the game has. And that's the biggest issue when it comes to the first Descendant. They are relying so heavily on the gameplay of the game that everything else in the game becomes that much more apparent, that much more visible. And despite its promising concepts and engaging mechanics and everything else that the game offers, it fails in the execution of so many things. And there was one point when I was playing the game where I was so just dialed out on the story that what I ended up doing was skipping every piece of dialogue in an entire area, jumping from node to node, just completing quests, just trying to get through the game at that point. And I remember sitting there doing a mission, watching as a bunny ran around and killed everything. I couldn't even do anything because they literally just nuked everything before I could, I don't know, even play the game to begin with. And I just turned the game off. What am I even doing at this point? Why am I even playing this game? Now, this isn't to say that other games aren't guilty of things like this. Warframe has tons of repetitive issues, but at the exact same time, they have a lot of other things in the game that help to alleviate that repetition and take the focus away from those areas by giving other areas of the game for players to be able to enjoy. They serve as distractions, more or less. And when you don't have those, well, the comparison between your game and the games that you're copying off of become that much more visible in contrast, especially when you look at their monetization.
Oh,
I'm going to be making some direct comparisons to Warframe because there's a lot of value in that. If you're sick of hearing those comparisons, that's a you problem. Maybe I wouldn't be playing a game that is quite literally Warframe with Destiny's gameplay loops. It's like asking somebody not to compare PALs to Pokemon. In many ways, the game actually improves upon Warframe. It has meaningful boss content, dungeons, interesting build crafting, and a way better new player experience. But there is no way that I'm turning a blind eye to the mobile game-inspired, trashy, blatant, time-wasting bullshit that you have to put up with to play this game. Every single one of their systems is wholly ripped from Warframe and made worse. Not because the developers messed up, not due to inexperience, because they are actively making the game worse so that you are more likely to spend money on their outrageously priced cash shop. Structurally, these games are identical. Warframe and Descendants are a mirror image. You have base characters and improved versions of those characters in Prime Warframes and Ultimate Descendants. The same goes for weapons, but in the first Descendant, they didn't really carry over the base weapon thing with Prime weapons, so you just have generic loot and then ultimate weapons. But the acquisition for Ultimate Descendants and Ultimate Weapons are the exact same. So now that we've defined them, let's look at their approach to gameplay and monetization. In the first Descendant, you run specific missions all throughout the game for a drop chance at a specific blueprint that you're looking for. You need 4 blueprints to put together to be able to make the item that you're chasing. Those blueprints are built separately and then put together in the final step. Most of this is the exact same from Warframe. However, individual materials that are needed to create each separate blueprint in the first Descendant require you to farm specific materials from specific areas throughout the game, and many of them have their own drop tables. So if you want to make one piece of an Ultimate Descendant as an example, you have to go open crates on one map, go farm another mission on another in a completely different zone with a different drop chance. You have to do void intercept battles for another blueprint with an exceedingly low drop chance, and then go and do an entirely different activity in another area to go get something else that you need. While all these items are farmable, the drop chances, the item-specific activities, and the travel all add up.
Chevy trucks with power you can count on.
Fuck up, Chevy.
Capability that doesn't compromise. A hard-working
While playing Warframe, you're constantly finding these things called relics. In the first Descendant, they're called amorphous material, and they're functionally the same. You do missions called Void Fissures, you crack open the relics, and you get a chance to get the items that you want inside. Where these two games diverge is that all blueprints, primed weapons, and warframes come specifically from these relics. No other additional farms needed, no other missions to do, no running around all over the place looking for it, and best of all, if you're in a party, you can choose to get a copy of one of the other players' rewards. Meaning that if you're in a group of 4 and you're all running the same relics, you can very easily get the blueprints you're looking for within an hour or less. If you're running around with a random party and you don't get what you want, at least you can pick something valuable from a reward loot pool of one of the other players. Moreover, all the materials that you need to build those blueprints are just standard materials of no rarity that you're likely going to have a massive stockpile of far before you ever even try to chase any of these primed weapons or warframes. And to take this all a step further, if you notice in the first Descendant, there is a material that you can use to be able to increase your drop chances on items with amorphous material, but that item that you need is incredibly specific. You have to farm it from very specific places, very specific missions, and it takes one single type for each type of amorphous material or different amorphous materials per bosses that you can use. In Warframe, they do the same thing, except for the fact that the material that you use actually just comes from doing the void missions in general. You're getting it constantly as you're playing and cracking these relics open. So the more you do, the higher you're increasing your drop chances, and the more likely you are to get what you want even faster. Oh, we're not done yet, because in Warframe, you can trade items with other players and premium currency, meaning that if you're going and cracking relics looking for primed weapons or warframes, ultimate descendants or weapons, well, you can trade those item for item with another player or for currency, and then go use that currency to trade with another player or to go use in the game's in-game shop. Better yet, you can actually even go and take those primed blueprints and go trade them into a vendor and then buy other things within the game as well from other unique shops that show up every once in a while. There's no time wasted. It respects your time.
Yeah, everything is free. Everything is used for something, and it has a level of fluidity with it. And being able to trade just automatically makes the Warframe system just objectively superior. And I heard they were going to add trading to this game, but that's probably a ways out.
You're always being rewarded regardless if you're progressing towards the thing that you're actually trying to get. Actually, you are ultimately always progressing towards the thing that you're trying to get. Whereas in the first Descendant, if you don't get what you are looking for, well, then you just don't get what you're looking for. And you better hope the things that you do find are things that you want to use in the future, or you want to use to build, a different frame or whatever it might, or Descendant or whatever it might be. And normally this kind of comparison really wouldn't be that big of a deal. But keep in mind that Warframe systems are entirely balanced around the fact that players can trade items in-game, trade premium currency in-game. So when you copy Warframe systems identically, like the first Descendant has, and then you remove the fairness, well, that's bullshit.
Yeah, and I agree. right? And personally, I don't care for the grind. Like, look, I'm a little grinding monkey, a little loot fucking goblin, so I don't fucking care. But yeah, like, the trade system would just be a net positive, right? So you can just trade things to people. You know, you can be like, all right, give me a couple of caliber for this, whatever. And, you know, I'm going to be generous because I probably have a shit ton of things I'll probably never use. Oh, and if I don't, well, here, you and me go grind this thing that you need ourselves. And if I get it, I'll trade it to you. And again, it goes back to how you interact with the game, right? Like, if you treat this like a social game, like the point is to play with your homies after a day at work, and you're going around checking each other's characters' asses, I mean, you don't really care. Like, you shouldn't care to do what the fuck I did and get everything in the fucking game, right? You shouldn't want to just power to the end game. Like, you should treat this as a social game, and that's what people do with Warframe, right? And yeah, Warframe has systems that make it just better, such as the trading system. But again, it is a social game, right? If you treat the game like a chore, like a marathon, right? Then, you know, some people will make it, some people will stop halfway through and be like, well, I don't want to run anymore. You know, if you treat the game just as, oh, I'm just going to jump on, play with my homies, have fun, well, then next thing you know, you're going to have everything in the game, and you're going to just enjoy the game at that point. So, I mean, it comes down to how you interact with the game, in my opinion.
Now, keep in mind, I'm making these comparisons because they are essential to the gameplay. Leveling up weapons, building characters, this is the core of the gameplay loop. The first Descendant also copied Warframe's modding system, where you can put mods onto weapons and characters as a form of build crafting, and both games have a limit on how many mods and what level those mods can be that you can install on these different items. However, this maximum can be increased. Energy activators are essentially the exact same thing as Orokin reactors and catalysts. They increase your mod capacity on weapons and warframes. Crystallized catalysts, on the other hand, are the exact same thing as Forma in Warframe, which allow you to be able to create these discounted slots, matching different symbols on mods to be able to give yourself more capacity. Energy activators and crystallized catalysts essentially have the exact same farming method. I'll concede that specifically activators aren't limited like Warframe's Orokin counterparts. Forma, on the other hand, is exceedingly common to be able to come by. It's a byproduct of opening relics while you're looking for prime parts. The accessibility of these items is a major concern. They're not a convenience item. These are critical in the progression of the game.
Yeah,
Without them,
you
you're
need
going
them.
nowhere.
Yeah, like in Warframe, to get a in-game Warframe would probably require what, 3, 4 formas, right? Again, with this game, you need 8 catalysts and an actuator, right? Or Warframe, yeah, I mean, you can put a reactor, and you'll come across quite a few of them if you do Nightwave. Or this, the only way to get an actuator blueprint is through the amorphous material, and they're always a rare drop, right? And they are critical to get into in-game content. Yeah, I mean, it is very constraining, and I can see why it turns people off. And that's, I believe, and well, you can get an actuator through doing like quests, but you only get one, and once you complete the quest, you don't get it again. But yeah, the constraint is the thing I have the problem with, because that's usually what turns people off from in-game.
These items are made to be monetized. So let's look at how each game does that. In Warframe, Orokin Reactors, Catalyst, and Forma are all 20 platinum. And seeing as though you can buy only the minimum of 75 platinum at $5, we can say that these are $2 each. You can even buy a bundle of 3 Forma for $5. In the first Descendant, it's 1,500 caliper at a minimum of $25 for a single energy activator. It's 300 caliper at a minimum of $10 for a single crystallized catalyst.
And you know what that tells me? Don't fucking buy them, right? But people do buy them. I'm like, now wait a minute, hold the fuck up. So to get an actuator probably costs you, because I think each Descendant, at least some of the normal Descendants are like 300 caliber. So to get one actuator costs you about as much to get like 3 normal Descendants, right? I mean, some of them cost 300, some of them cost 4, 5, 6, 700. But yeah, again, what that tells me is to never fucking use caliber. Look, the only thing I use caliber on, the only fucking thing I'll use my caliber on is to get slots, because you start out with 10 slots, but there's like 22 Descendants. So eventually, and I liked the game. After 300 hours, I was like, fuck it, I'm going to tip the developer. I enjoy the game. And I did buy Ultimate Glay, and with the leftover caliber, I bought the slots. But yeah, again, what that tells me, someone who's played Warframe, probably has thousands of hours into Warframe, 600 hours into this game, is never spend fucking caliber on these things. Like, they are meant, at least to me, they're meant not to be spent on, not to spend any money on. It's meant for the whales, the people that, you know, just have the caliber just as a base, right? But again, people do, and it's like, bruh.
While the numbers speak for themselves, I want you to keep in mind that not only can players buy these for cash far cheaper in Warframe, but players can also, and quite easily and quite frequently, earn that premium currency through trades and buy those items outright that way.
Yep.
Which brings me to something that I think shows the difference between how these two games view their audiences and how much more those audiences are valued, and also how much further their money goes when they spend it in the game. Which is the notion of buying ultimate characters versus buying Prime Access bundles in Warframe. Now, keep in mind, the vast majority of players in Warframe don't really buy frames. They build frames. They go out, they farm the parts because it's so easy to do, it's so accessible, and they can also just go and buy them off the market or trade them with other players if they have things that they want to trade for. But I initially didn't want to bring up this kind of pricing comparison because it's not even worth making the comparison in the first place. If you buy a $79 Prime Access bundle in Warframe, you're not only getting the character, but you're getting the value of that money you spent in premium currency. More than that value, actually. Over $100 in premium currency value coming back to the player. Meaning that these are actually discounted premium currency bundles more than they are Prime Access or weapon bundles more than anything else. It's practically...
Yeah, and I bought... I think I bought the regular Hildren pack. Then I bought the Prime Hildren pack just to go full circle. And I was glad to buy them. Like, fuck, it's a good game. I bought the regular when I got back into Warframe. So I'm just going to buy the Prime and, you know, that just be that. I mean, the game's good enough. I'm fine with spending money on a good game. You know, like I did in this final Descendant when I bought Ultimate Glay. Like, if I enjoy the game enough, I will. You know, I will tip the developer. You know, people are willing to do this, right? You know, it's putting your money in the entertainment you want to see and interact with. And I think that's fine. Now, it's fucking egregious in the first Descendant, but, I mean... What does that tell me? Oh, well, that tells me just to fucking grind for it. A grind I'm fine with doing. because I'm suffering with the boys, you know?
A built-in discount. Whereas if we're looking at something like the First Descendant and their ultimate bundles, you're just getting the character, an energy activator installed, and a couple cosmetics for $100. The First Descendant's pricing, gameplay loops, item acquisition, power-ups, upgrades, all of these things were directly torn from Warframe and made worse wholesale. What's upsetting about all of this is that many people, including myself, want to spend money, want to buy things.
Yeah.
I want to support the games that I enjoy, but when your game is designed around its monetization, you undermine that enjoyment for the sake of profit. I mean, Orokin reactors, energy catalysts, these things are systems that are designed for profit. You are not expanding mod capacity. You're removing a barrier that was put in place by the developers in hopes so you would spend money to remove it. I get it. These companies have to make money. Playing a free-to-play game, making a free-to-play game, you have to have these areas of friction that urge players to buy things. However, it's all about the approach, how heavy-handed you are, or how player-focused you are. And this is just not it. The differences between these two games, their gameplay loops and their monetization, is that on the side of Digital Extremes and Warframe, you have a company that is trying to see things from the perspective of the player. They care about the player's experience.
Yeah, and it took, again, Warframe decades to get where it's at, so decades of ups and downs, like we've been over that video. And I don't have a problem with a company just wanting to make money. I mean, obviously they want to make money off the skins, and if the game's good enough, people will pay that. I have a problem if the fundamental aspect of the game is skewed just for the sake of making money. So, and like Assassin's Creed Odyssey, the point of the grind being a fucking slog was to have you pay for the solution, basically. And that was the EXP bullcrap. You know, one should come before the other. And it's not making money. Making money should be, okay, well, we have this game, right? And again, Odyssey was a AAA game. Like, we have the game. You know, we have the fundamental aspect of the game, but we'll, you know, put a little bit of monetization over it just to either, what's the word I was looking for? Alleviate the things you need to grind for, or, you know, in case you want to support the developers, right? But if the point of the game is to, in every aspect of the game, is to push you to buying, that's where I find a problem with it.
Whereas the First Descendant and Nexon copied their homework, but didn't copy their notes. I think the place that you can see this the most clearly is in player expression. If you look around the entire game, everybody is either in the base skin of their frame or they're all the exact same color. You'll see some people that are wearing maid outfits and swimsuits and things like that, but it's the base color version because the game just lacks color. Because if you want it, well, you need to buy it, and it's a one-time use. You better hope that's the color that you want, and yeah.
Yeah, and personally, I don't much fucking... The base skins of most of the Descendants look fucking amazing enough. Like, there are skins that make them look worse, in my opinion. Like, there's a skin where you can put Bunny in, like, a panda outfit, and it takes away the fundamental assets, emphasis on ass, shall we say. And I'm like, okay, this skin just makes this character look worse. But hey, if someone wants to put it on, whatever. But, I mean, the base skins for me look amazing for the female characters. I mean, some of them look fine for the male characters, but I find myself min-maxing the looks of the male characters over the female characters anyway. You know, like Luna, my wifey, you know, her base skin is fucking amazing. I don't think I'll ever put a skin on her, but maybe something better comes out in the future. Who knows? But yeah, I'd say I'm satisfied with the base skins.
But in Warframe, from the very start, you have access to colors.
Fashion
There's
frame.
not an absolute ton of them or anything like that. You can definitely go buy more and buy cosmetics and things like that. From the very start, you have the ability to change the color of your entire frame, of your weapons, of different little objects that are on your character and light.
Yeah, I mean, fashion framing is an entire community. I use this word very loosely. Like, fashion framing is a thing. It's an entire separate fundamental aspect of Warframe that people gladly put their time, money, and effort into doing. Same thing with cosplay, right? When you see the TennoCon, like, that's a fundamental aspect of the fucking game that people put time, money, and this is separate from the game itself, right? Because yeah, you're looking like a pretty princess when you're mowing down Grenier by the tens of thousands, but god damn it, you're looking pretty, right? You know, and that's a sign of a healthy game. That's a sign of a healthy gamer base, right? And I think at least most games in the past used to cater to that culture around gaming, right? Like World of Warcraft and Overwatch used to do it, and other older games. Halo did the same fucking thing. I mean, they don't do it anymore, which is why you have games like Warframe and The Last Descendant, and amongst others, Helldivers, picking up the scraps, picking up, taking the lead. But yeah, and these things operate outside of the product itself. Yeah, it's product adjacent, it's IP adjacent, but it's also fundamentally is from the product, from the game itself.
Lights that are on your character, of the energy that you use, of the abilities that you cast. That's one of the coolest things I love, is the fact that you can change the color of the abilities that you use. Sick. Anyway, it's just player expression and enjoyment in that way is not their prerogative. Profit is their prerogative, and that's fine, but you have to do it the right way. And one of the things that I've seen a lot of recently, I've seen a lot of people having these discussions, white knighting the first Descendant, defending it from the Warframe accusations, defending it from the comparisons of monetization and trade and things like that. And the only thing that I really have to say is that it's the most pathetic thing I've ever seen in my entire life.
I've never seen any of that.
You can like a game, but that doesn't somehow make everything else it's doing okay. You can like a game, and you can still criticize it. You can still have issues with it, and you should, because that's how those games get better in the first place. I'm sick of seeing this weird conversation about, let them cook. It took Warframe 10 years to get where they got. Really? Did it take the first Descendant 10 years to copy Warframe? Isn't it odd to you that out of all of the things that they didn't copy from Warframe or Destiny or The Division, or specifically with Warframe, the one thing that they didn't take was the fairness, the monetization? Isn't that oddly convenient to you?
Yeah, I mean, but that's not a defense, right? But it did take, them interacting, and again, we're talking a Canadian company, which is DE, the makers of Warframe, talking to the community, the people playing the game, and getting their feedback to get where it is, right? And yeah, the Descendant has a lot of things that, again, that they didn't take from Warframe, but again, what that tells me is, okay, so depending on how you interact with the game, it doesn't need to, right? I mean, if you treat the game like a marathon, then yeah, you're not going to have fun. But if you treat it like a social game, then you are. And I'm not defending the bad shit of the first Descendant, because yeah, its grind is in some aspects fucking atrocious, and it's annoying when you're trying to get something and it just doesn't drop. But with the person you're with, it drops for them immediately. Like, yeah, that's annoying. But the way I'd go around it is, I don't really try. I don't really care. It's like, oh, I didn't get what I want. Okay, so anyway, I'm gonna play with my boys now. You know, and I don't know. I don't know anyone who's defending against the Warframe accusation. At least, again, I've never been on forums about this game. Like, I usually look at the forums of games I hate, just to look for the bots that will defend, like Concord. Like, I went to the Concord forums just to look for the bots defending that game and be like, oh, that's pretty fucking stupid. I don't do that for the Descendant because I like the game. Hey, yeah, I mean, Warframe is still just a superior product in my eyes, right? This game's definitely starting out on a better situation than Warframe did when it started out, right? But it does have a long way to go, and again, I blame Nexon for the garbage that you're talking about. I don't really blame the developers, because again, there is talent on this, but it's being pulled in odd directions.
It completely ignores the idea and takes away the responsibility of developers, saying that, like, oh, well, it took Warframe 10 years to get there. Like, we're supposed to wait for this game to do the exact same thing when it has the easy opportunity to, well, learn from the mistakes of its peers. I like the game, but I don't respect it. And in a lot of ways, it's an insult to the games that it copies from. I still plan on playing it. I still plan on putting some more time into it and seeing if any of my opinions change in the future. They probably won't, but at least I'll give it a shot. I mean, I almost quit Warframe after 20 to 30 hours, so stranger things have definitely happened. I hope the game does get better in the future. I hope it becomes more fair. I hope that some of these companies wake up to this, because this is the way that you find a dedicated audience. And I'm not saying that there isn't one for this game already, and I'm not saying there aren't players that are going to want to continue to play it or that it's not doing well, but the thing is, at the end of the day, when you make a game that is as unfairly designed as the first Descendant is in so many ways, and how there's other games that are out there that respect your time so much more, I don't see it holding on to its player base the same way that Warframe does. That's it. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, that's a fair opinion, right? I mean, that there's many things I will not defend of the first Descendant, and that's one of them, the fact that it is not fair to, you know, the players in certain aspects, right? You know, if you're farming with your boys, and they already got the piece and you haven't, so they fuck off to find their own thing, and you're still trying to get your thing. Again, what that creates is people that just get what they want, then dip, and that's not a good, that's not a good situation to be in, right? It needs to capitalize on the social aspect, as opposed to just being, you know, a game with ass and titties to goon to, and maybe just get what the fuck you want. So yeah, I mean, that's a fair opinion. I personally, I wouldn't say I'm addicted to the game, but yeah, I put quite a few out. I was addicted. I did put a lot of time into the game, but I mean, I don't really. I just put a couple hours a day now, just for the new grind. Well, yeah, fair opinion.
Thank you guys for watching the video. I'm sure I upset quite a lot of you. If I did, I'm sure you'll leave a comment. I'll try not to read it.
Got him.
Stay cool, stay righteous, stay safe, my friends. Catch me live on Twitch if you guys want to try to yell at me there. Outside of that, I'm going to get out of here. Peace.
Yeah, and again, with the new content, like, I had a fucking problem with it with the Haley farm because again, nobody wants to just do puzzles. And again, it's a game mode you can only play alone, and it's effectively hard mode. So when it came out, like you could only play with the one Descendant that was specifically built effectively to just tank, right? And I don't like that because I fucking hate Ajax because he's one of the most boring fucking characters in the game. But I had to build him up just so I can do the new content and not fucking. And again, it is a situation where I just did not care to get the new. If you put the consumer in a position where they just stop caring, that's terrible game design. And I do believe the new stuff, when it first came out, was just garbage game design. Like, they completely, fundamentally forgot what their player base wanted. Now, they made a lot of changes since then, right? But if they're going to go into get into this situation where they just release things almost unplayably, not because of the bugs, but because the skill gate it, oh, then you're going to get people that just get the fuck off the game or just not care or just go schizophrenic and buy the character. I don't think that's really a healthy situation to put your game into. But yeah, I mean, I'm still playing the game, but yeah, I just want to do a video about this. It's weird listening to other people's opinions on games you like, and it's definitely refreshing. But that's all I gotta say about this. See ya.